Huh?
You've got many people here. I was feeling my lesson, but I didn't get it too much. There's many people here that like that.
Yeah. Well, you went through it, the cycle.
I'm gonna stay awake this whole class.
Okay.
Learn something.
Is that to get a pinch? You fall asleep?
You don't have to worry about that because I'm not sleeping.
Okay. Shalom Aleichem. What's your name? Yaakov?
Are we talking about the parsha this week?
Yeah, every week we're talking about this. Where are you from, Yaakov? Where are you from? Brazil.
It's interesting what the Rambam and the Ramban say about the parsha, the sacrifice.
Yeah.
It's like the Rambam says that the sacrifice is to get rid of idol worship from the cattle and everything, but the Ramban says that it's wrong because Hashem gets a pleasure out of the sacrifice. And he says that the Rambam's idea was ludicrous.
Only the Ramban can say that. You can say it. Yeah, Schneer, we're missing still.
Thanks.
They're all here, except for Schneer. Okay. So we will again talk about the Parsha. And as usual, we'll try to relate to it. And also remind everybody, if something you don't understand, please stop me. Don't let it fly away. I don't mind repeating it as long as there are listeners. The Parsha is Vayikrah, as you all know, and it talks about the Korbanos. Before I delve into it and try to discuss a little bit the meaning of Korbanos, one more bit. I want to explain there are many times that we may be talking about concepts that seem to be abstract. Abstract. Everybody knows what abstract is?
It's an idea. It's not like.
I didn't ask you to translate. Everybody knows. Everybody knows.
Oh, I thought you were asking.
No. And a little bit distant, like you're saying, this is what a Yid should want. This is what a Yid really thinks. And you say, hey, I never thought of it. And I'm a Yid. So what's going on here? These principles, these teachings, all remind us of a principle that the Rambam gives in Halacha, which I believe he mentioned in the past. The Rambam says, Api Halacha, a practical Halacha, that if a person is obligated to do something, Api Torah, But the obligation, this thing that he has to do is such that it must be done by his own will, by his own volition, his own consent, agreement. It cannot be done for him. He must do it. Such as the person is obligated to bring a korban, a certain kind of a korban. And by a korban, we learned in today's parsha, it says, in this week's parsha, lirtzoinoi, that he has to be lirtzoinoi. What does lirtzoinoi mean? His will. He has to be by his consent. You can't bring a korban for a person if he doesn't consent that this korban be brought. What if he is obligated to bring a korban and he refuses? So then the Bezdin can take him and force him, coerce him, and even beat him until he says, okay, I consent. And then we bring the korban. So the Rambam asks the question that everybody here probably is asking right now. What kind of consent is this? He really doesn't want it. He said he doesn't want. He was beaten. He doesn't want to be beaten anymore, so he says, I want. And we said, he says, I want. Good enough. Good enough. We go ahead and do it. So the Rambam explains a true and very profound insight. We cannot look at a person on the superficial, on the face of it. We cannot on superficial, externally, just the way it appears outside. We have to know that inside, behind this facade, this cover-up, there is a soul. And there is an inner consciousness, an inner want that a person really wants, and he cannot bring himself to express it. For whatever reason. He wants to stand his ground, he wants to be stubborn. The Yetzer Hara has all kinds of different methods to capture a person and force him to do things that are contrary to his own will. A classic example of this in our own experience. Today's world emphasizes very much personal choice. Everybody can do whatever they want. Right? That's the principle. It's my own business. My own business, what I do with my money, with my life, whatever it is, my own business. Don't mix in my own business. No principles. Everybody does what they want. The Rebbe once mentioned it. What when you see somebody climbing up on the bridge and God forbid he wants to end his life? So what do? We send squads of people, of police, experienced people, who look for every which way to prevent him from doing it, stopping him. And if we can catch him and force him off, we will do it. And nobody's going to say, what are you doing? It's his life. You let him do what he wants with his life. And everybody understands that this would be a false argument. Because everybody recognizes that this situation that this person is in, and that he is doing this kind of harm to himself, he himself doesn't agree with it. It's against himself, his own life. Except he has lost himself. He is incapable of dealing on the external level with the problems that he has. But but not to say that this is his true wish. And therefore when we go and force him off, we are actually helping him to do what he really wants. This is understood and recognized even in the outside world. That a human being wants to live under any circumstances. And when he loses the strength to maintain it, so we have to help him. But not to say that this is what he wants. Even recently, in the last period, not, the last couple of years, there was a whole controversy, a whole debate, discussion about what's called euthanasia. Somebody who is very, very sick. And certain doctors, quote unquote, so to speak, doctors, whose job is supposed to be save lives. And they are helping the people to, God forbid, end their lives. And they say, I'm having mercy for him, he shouldn't suffer. And this is something which even the Goyish Welt understands, that this is not human, this is not right. There's a whole debate how to deal with it. This is not right. Because the worst, to cut short a person's life is the biggest crime. He's suffering, but he's alive. And life itself is such tremendous value that you don't shorten it. And it is greater. Life is greater than what we human beings can judge, can measure. Life is a God-given quality, even by a doctor. By a Yid lives with a godly soul. A Yid has a godly soul. He has really a godly perception of things. He doesn't even look at things from a worldly perspective. He has an animal soul as well. He can see it from a worldly perception. But he also has a godly perception. I'll come to you. And nobody can surmise. Nobody can fully understand the depth of what's going in a person's heart, in a person's mind. The Torah, Hashem, God who created the person, who gives him the soul, only he can pronounce what's in it. And therefore the Rambam says, yes, we beat this guy. And when he said, I want, so we just simply removed the obstacle. We removed the stubbornness of his Yetzer Hara that maintained, I want to better say, I don't want, even though I want. So we removed that. But the I want is a true I want. It comes directly from his soul. And therefore we can bring the curtain for him. Yes, sir.
You know how you're talking about the euthanasia, how people help the people that don't want to live. But what about the people that are in so much pain that it's their choice? I mean, they really don't want to live. I mean, if that person the person doesn't help them, they're probably going to end up killing themselves anyways.
We will leave this debate for the people who are responsible for it. I only brought it in to explain that everybody knows and understands that there is a depth in the person, that we cannot judge a person by his surface.
Right, the free will of which talk the Torah, when I shall say, I put before you the life and the bad, this is true. I mean, of course it's true, but how can I understand this if you say that the person doesn't want to do this, okay, we can force to him because his soul wants. So what's happened with the free choice?
Good question.
This principle that we force him is only in very unique instances. We don't beat a person to put on tefillin. We don't put a person to eat kosher. You understand? Only in certain unique instances. One instance is when he has to give a get. You know what a get is? He has to give divorce to his wife. So we force him if he refuses in certain circumstances. Because a get also has to be done by his consent. Another is where he is chayav to the B'sam Mikdash, a korban. There are very few instances. Okay. On the other hand, the principle of free choice in itself, I want to discuss it in general, what it means, but not right now. Okay.
These instances, I don't want to hold up too much, but these,
Sorry?
I don't want to hold up too much, but these instances are dafka when it involves a zulas, like the Beis Hamikdash or a wife.
Right.
It's not just you.
Right. But there's much to be discussed. As I said, this is a topic completely on its own. The illustration that I like to present, to understand and to see that we ourselves recognize this reality, is that if you see a drunk, you know what a drunk is?
Mm-hmm.
Who has gone overboard, and he is throwing up, and he's lying in the gutter in his own throw up, and he says, it's wonderful, life is great. He really is so happy. Okay, anybody looking at him says, oh, what a mercy, what a pity, what a tragedy. He says he's great, he's happy. What means a tragedy? The answer is that this fact that he says he's happy is because he's so blind, he's so oblivious to his own soul. He doesn't really mean it. And everybody who sees that will try every means to help him to get out of this. And not to feel so happy in that condition. Because what? Because we all recognize this is not what a human being, this is not his real self. This is just, he fell down. This is not his real self. And we have to try to help him get out of it and lift out of it. Okay. So, having exposed this principle, I want to speak about the meaning of korbanos on a very deep level. But we will be able to understand it. At least we will know that our souls, that we really understand this Indian, even though practically speaking we may not be up to it. But nevertheless, it is important that we know what the truth is, we understand it, and to the extent that we're able to understand it. Again, as I mentioned many times, what I say is, generally speaking, based on a maimon, a sikha, or something, even though it's not exactly in that order and exactly every point, but the principle is from a sikha for them. We see right in the beginning of this parsha, it speaks about korbanos. And the beginning of this parsha is Vayikrah el Moshe. Hashem called Moshe. This is the only time where it says Vayikrah before Hashem wants to say something to Moshe. It says earlier Vayikrah, Hashem called Moshe to go up to the mountain. That was something else. He had to go up the mountain, so he called him up to go up to the mountain. Vayikrah Moshe ba'im hashvi vayayal Moshe. But in terms of telling Moshe mitzvahs and teaching him Torah, this is the time when it says Vayikrah, and Hashem called him. And as you learned in Rashi, this Vayikrah is actually telling us that every time that Hashem spoke to him, he called him. So this is true not only by this mitzvah, by other mitzvahs as well. Nevertheless, expressly and openly, it is written here by Korbanos, not everybody else. Because Korbanos are in fact a unique type of mitzvah. Unique. A very special type of mitzvah. It's a very unique, in many ways, as we shall see, to the extent that this korban, it warrants, it justifies that Moshe should be called, because this mitzvah expresses a special relationship between Yidden and Hashem.
Coming closer.
Korbanos are clearly in the category of chukim. You know that we have eidos, chukim, and mishpatim. Chukim are those categories of mitzvahs that we do not have an explanation. We're not capable of understanding the reasons for them. They're called chukim. And the principle of a chukah is that Hashem says, this is my chukah, this is my decree, this is my principle. I want you to do it just because I told you to do it. Do not seek to understand the reason for it, because it's beyond your capacity to see it. The Gemara says, on Shlomo HaMelech, explaining a certain posuk, Shlomo HaMelech was the Chacham Mikol Odom, the wisest man that ever lived. And it says that Shlomo HaMelech, he was able to understand the reasons behind every mitzvah, except one. For Adumi, he says that here I give up. Which means that even Shlomo HaMelech was not able to get behind every mitzvah, every chukah. Some he was able to, but most people, everything that's called a chukah is beyond our understanding. Shatnez, every kind of inyan. And korbanos is part of a chukah.
Paraduma is a carbon? Considered a carbon?
No, paraduma is not a carbon.
Okay.
No. Paraduma is tahara mitzvah, tahara masa. The way the inyanim of chukim are generally explained, presented, is that even though we are not capable of understanding the reason for the chukah, but we have to know that every chukah has a reason. Except the reason was not expressed, was not revealed to us, so we're not able to understand it. But not to say that the chukah is without a reason. There's a reason behind it. It isn't just a stubbornness. Hashem said, I want you to do this just because I want you to do it. Just out of nowhere. No reason. There is a reason. Except the reason is beyond the understanding, the intellectual understanding that human beings are capable. This is how, generally speaking, all the chukim are presented. All the chukim except for korbanos. Korbanos, even within chukim themselves, go into a different category. By korbanos it says, Reach ni ishe, reach ni choyach l'Hashem. And Rashi says that what is the korban? The korban is Nachas ruach lefonai she'omarti v'naseh etzayin. You all have this Rashi, you all learned this. But what is the korban? It's a nachas ruach lefonai. Hashem says, I'm very pleased. It's a very pleasing spirit to me, very pleasing order to me, that I said and my will has been fulfilled. Nothing else. Now, every mitzvah that we do a mitzvah that Hashem told us to do. We put on tefillin. So say, every mitzvah is like that. Why all of a sudden, by korbanos, we say, the answer is, every mitzvah, of course, we fulfill Hashem's will. And Hashem really wants us to do it, and Hashem is very pleased when we do the mitzvah. But, in addition to that, there is also a reason for this. In put on tefillin, it's not only the fact that we have fulfilled Hashem's will. Surely that's the most important thing for us. But we also understand tefillin have an effect. I don't know if you learned it in tefillin shel rosh, tefillin shel yad, has mamshich meichin, mamshich midas. There are effects of every mitzvah. Tzitzis is atev, you were surrounded with mitzvahs. Mezuzah is protecting our doors. Every mitzvah has an inner meaning. Surely it is, every mitzvah has the inner that Hashem said and we did. But that's not just that. There is also the other mitzvah. Like I said before, by chukim even by chukim there are reasons, but we don't know them. It's not exclusively Hashem did and we did. Yes.
When Mashiach comes, since Hashem's essence will be revealed, will we know the reason for the chukim?
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Now you have a reason to sit and listen?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So what's so special? As you explained, by korbanos, it seems like korbanos, the whole emphasis is in the fact she'omarti v'naseh etzayin. There's no other reason for it. It's not like all other chukim that have reasons, but we don't know them. This is a chukah that literally doesn't have a reason. And the whole.
Isn't it the korbanos is kapora from the sins?
So how the korbanos bring kapora? That's the question.
But the reason to clean your sins.
That's right, and that's not a reason. No. Yeah, we have to bring korbanos under various different circumstances, for sin or for other reasons. And we say, if I have a sin, I have to bring a korban to wipe away the sin. But how does a korban wipe away the sin? You know, the Rebbe used to direct people. If somebody, God forbid, is not well, the Rebbe said, check your mezuzahs. Check your tefillin. So, yes, literally, really, this is a spiritual thing. Mezuzah is tefillin, but nevertheless there is a connection. Because mezuzah is supposed to protect the person. I say, Shoyme mezuzah, Shoyme Dalas is Israel. Huh? What?
Instead of shechting your behema, you shecht another behema.
So, but and tefillin, it has to do also with the health of the person, to put on the head and on the hand. What does korbanos have to do with anything? And there's no relationship at all. By shechting the other behema, you are doing anything as far as yourself is concerned?
That's what I'm talking about.
Sorry?
Don't explain to me that the religions that existed prior to Abraham Avinu and understanding Hashem, and giving Hashem to the world, the other religions were using animal sacrifices. So to make the Bnei Yisrael go away from it so quickly would be hard to do. So instead, we were gradually understanding that we have a higher reason for it. In other words, we couldn't just stop everything that was out there.
Yeah, I know what you're referring to. I know what you're referring to. I'll tell you. The Rambam in Meir Nevuchim gives reasons for almost all the mitzvahs. And the Rambam himself says that there is absolutely no way for us to fathom the reason for the mitzvahs. So to speak, the exhaustive and the conclusive reason for the mitzvah. The only thing that he is attempting to do, he wants to do, is that there should be a first step approach. You should be able to relate to it one way or another. But not to say that this is a proper reason. We are, for those who learn 3 Prokim, we just now finished Hilchos Mikvois, the Rambam. And at the end of Hilchos Mikvois, the Rambam says that there is no way for us to know the reasons for mitzvahs. Particularly when it comes to Tumo and Tahara, Tumo. Impurity, he says, Tumo is not a dirt on your hand that you can wash away with water. So what's the point? If you're Tomei, you go in a mikveh, you become Tomei. And then, how is the relationship? So he says, there's no way this is Hashem's chokhmah that we have no privy to, we have no access to. Nevertheless, it's obligatory on us to find some way to explain it to ourselves at any level. Doesn't mean that we should ever claim that we understand the reason for the mitzvah.
Holy water.
I don't understand what's so not intriguing. Like what is so concealed about Korbanos. Like I would think Paradum is much harder for me to do than the idea of Korbanos. Korbanos is like there's a whole thing that person doesn't. He feels these animals doing instead of me. It seems to be a logical thing. Like why is it the most not logical? I don't understand. Maybe it's not logical, but it's not less logical than Paraduma or. I don't understand.
It's completely counterintuitive. Intuitive, counter to human logic. To take a behemoth, put it on fire, and let it burn. What happened? For Aduma, you burned it, but you use the ashes. You do something with it. You don't understand what it does, but you don't just consume something in fire and that's the end of it.
I think it's just symbolism.
Anybody else have any suggestions?
You shed your animal skin.
Please.
What about the animal was big and hot and warm, and you have to put your hands on it, look at all that, like you have to get, and then you kill it, and blood comes out. I mean, and you know that should have to. I
really didn't mean for everybody to come up with suggestions. Please.
No, I'm suggesting why. It was a very moving and not moving like a song, but it was very.
It's
difficult to do that. I mean, that's a hard thing.
All right. David.
I mean, I'm serious.
David. It's my turn now. Thank you. So Rashi says, by the way, Rashi says, what is the korban? The korban is an exclusive union. The whole union of the korban is Shoamarti v'nasar etzayni, and that's the nachas ruach. We mentioned before that the korban you bring, if you did a sin, so then the korban comes to forgive for the sin. The truth is that the korban does not come to forgive the sin. The forgiving for the sin is by doing tshuva. Without doing tshuva, there is no forgiveness for the sin. Every korban that a person brings, if it's for a sin, he has to first be misvada. It's called misvada. He has to first express his sin, and he has to express his regret and ask for forgiveness. And Hashem forgives a person by him does tshuva. This is that which forgives for the sin. The korban comes after that he had already done his tshuva. So it comes to what's called the chiper. Chiper, the word kapora in Lashon Kodesh means to wipe away, to wash it away. Once it has been forgiven, to wash it away. And the idea of washing it away means that if a person did a sin, the very fact that he was able to do a sin indicates that it is possible for him to conceive. What conceive means? To have a possibility in his mind, you can do different than Hashem wants you to do. Because if this was an impossible, he would not have done the sin. And this concept, this whole thought that it's possible, that a person should think, that it's possible to bend a little bit and not to do exactly what Hashem says, this is beyond conception. How can a person ever think that he would do differently than what Hashem wants? Therefore, the sin is indicative of a certain distance between him and Hashem. And then when he does tshuva, and Hashem forgives him for the sin. Hashem forgave him for the sin, but this blemish, this rip, this scar is still there. It's like when a person has a cut and it heals and it's protected against infection, but there's a scar. The scar is reminiscent of that sin. And when we have chas v'sholom a failing, and we have a sin, we want to get forgiveness. We're not only seeking forgiveness. We want to reestablish our relationship with Hashem on the purest level possible. We want to get back in His favor. We want to get back to relate to Him in a manner that preceded the sin, like there was never a sin. We don't want the scar to stay there. We want to reestablish this complete union that existed before the sin. And this is what the korban is. The korban is not to forgive for the sin. The korban is to wipe away the scar. To remove the scar that remains after everything is healed. So there will be no trace of the sin. There will be no sense that such a thing is possible.
So we should conclude that the sin is not itself the cause of the separation between the person and Hashem. I mean, the mentality that leads the person to make the sins is over there since before. So the sin itself is the symptom. Is the symptom of this separation between the person and Hashem.
Well, what you're saying is logical, but in reality, when a person wants to do a sin, as long as he didn't do it, his wanting to do it is not complete. In other words, he thinks of it, it's possible, but it's not really possible in practice. This is what the Alter Rebbe says. What is a Beinoni in Tanya? A Beinani is a very high madrega, the Alter Rebbe says, right? You learned it. A Beinani is a very high madrega. And what is the madrega of a Beinani? Not that he cannot possibly want to do a sin, but he cannot possibly do a sin. And this step of doing it, this is the difference between the Rasha and the Beinani. And it's a very significant step. Very, very significant step. Just like in the good side, just like in the mitzvah. Everybody wants to do mitzvahs. What's the most difficult part of doing mitzvahs? To want to do the mitzvah or to do it?
To do the mitzvah.
Which is the most difficult part?
To do the mitzvah.
To do the mitzvah, not to want to do the mitzvah.
One also is difficulty.
What?
Actually, one also is difficulty, but
Why is that the difficult part? Because when you do it, you have to break away from something else and do this, and you can do it. To want it,
when the person do the action, it's like a mechanic. The person he put the kavana for to make higher the action. One time that the person is doing 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. In 1 time he need put more kavana for the quality of the mitzvah, depending on the time you speak. If you speak for 1 time, the first time for to do is difficult. It's more difficult the action than the word.
right?
When the person is mechanic, always make this permanent.
Let me ask you something. To get up in the morning on time, can you become mechanical?
No.
No, okay. Baruch Hashem, you know that it doesn't happen automatically.
No.
Nothing happens automatically.
That
That we agree.
sometimes
All right.
Sometimes it happens by habit.
So it's not that simple. It's not that simple. Yes, the habit helps to be discussed yesterday, but it's not that habit takes away all the effort. The real effort is in doing it. And if you examine yourself, you'll see that every day there's an effort. There's an effort in everything that you do. And when you daven, and sometimes you say, "Oh, davening is so long," but you daven so many days. You daven 100 times already, 200, 1,000 times. It's too much. I have to say Tehillim. Oh, it's too much. In wherever you turn, the deed is the most difficult part on our madrega. Okay, because this is our battle at this level. So
I'm sorry. If we can think that if the person saved is too much and doesn't make the action, could come the question: he really had the desire? Because if the desire is so strong, in the end she will make the action.
I don't understand.
If he says this is too much, no, I don't want to do this, we can think maybe the desire is not so strong.
No, he does it anyway, but it's a battle. It's a battle every time. It doesn't automatically, because I did it yesterday, I can do it today. That's not guarantee at all.
That same question on the carbon. You see, why we do the carbon? How do we sin? Now we know it doesn't move the sin. This is the scar. But what's, again, the connection between the carbon and moving this?
Okay, well, that's what I'm trying to explain. So, what is the... so, what was the original cause that made the sin possible? Before that, there was no sin. Everything was smooth, and he was one thing with Hashem. Then came the sin. The sin means that it created a schism between him, a break between him and Hashem. So even though Hashem forgave him, but nevertheless that distance and that break exists. we want to reestablish this union. Now, this union between a Yid with Hashem that we want to reestablish is, we said, something beyond tshuva, because Hashem forgave him this sin. It's not just tshuva that he doesn't have a sin. He already forgave him this sin. So what then is it? It relates to a relationship between Hashem and between the Yid and Hashem that is beyond, that is greater, deeper than I'm doing the right thing, I'm doing what you want me to do. It's a union that is like that they're one thing with Hashem. Not like, let's say, you have two friends and I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to hurt any person. But a union means that's beyond being hurt. They're one. They're one. Nothing to do with any other implications. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to cause you any kind of discomfort. The korban is a special mitzvah. The korban is a mitzvah that really in itself does not have any reciprocal or any consequential effect. Nothing. You take a korban, you kill the behemah, and burn it on the mizbeach. What is the korban present? What does it mean to take a behemah and you burn it on the mizbeach? The korban is a statement that this behemah, it's a whole metzius, it's a living animal in the world. Really, even though it's a whole metzius, it really is completely bottled, completely null for Hashem. Everything is Hashem. It doesn't represent any kind of separation, any kind of metzius by itself. How do we express? We want to establish our relationship to Hashem that it should be completely smooth and seamless. How do we express this principle? How do we express this principle that we have a relationship with Hashem that is not based on any kind of benefit, just me and Hashem? When we take an object in the world and we want to declare and show that this object is totally Hashem's, nothing to do with the world at all. This is the principle of the korban. Take the behemah, shecht it, and you burn it. That makes a statement that this is entirely, that this is entirely Hashem's world. Complete. Without any, you don't need to derive any kind of benefit from it. And thus, the union of the korban, this is what Rashi says, the whole union of the korban is only one thing. She'amarti v'naseh l'tzayim. There is no consequential benefit. There is no result from it. Not even, like you said, the Porah Aduma. Something remains, we do with it. We don't understand what happens, but something remains from it. Here, nothing remains. There's nothing to it. The whole statement is, this is Hashem's. That's the statement of the Korban. And perhaps it can be explained with this, that by this mitzvah of the Korban, that expresses uniquely means in a greater way than any other mitzvah, the fact that Eden can establish and make a statement that we only know of Hashem, nothing else. Here, the mitzvah began by Hashem calling Mesh, Vayikrah Mesh, Hashem called Mesh. Because here, by this mitzvah, we see the special relationship between Eden and Hashem. This is not just a mitzvah like all other mitzvahs. Having explained that, I want to translate this, how this applies to us. How do we understand this at our level? And how do we incorporate this? Take it in for ourselves in our own avodah. Now we don't have karbonos. But even if we have karbonos, every mitzvah in the Torah has the mitzvah the way it is in the physical world. And then there's a mitzvah the way it is in Ruchnius. But Ruchnius, the union of karbonos, is the battle, the battle that we have with our Yetzer Hara. The union of karbonos is the battle that we have with our Yetzer Hara. That's why it says that the korban is min habheima, min habokum, min hatzeim. That the Yetzer Hara also, there are different types of Yetzer Hara. And what's called the Jewish Yetzer Hara, the kosher Yetzer Hara, is from kosher animals. There could be, God forbid, non-kosher animals. So that, generally speaking, is not part of our Yetzer Hara. But we have kosher animals. So we also have an animal in ourselves. And we have to know how to bring this animal on the korban. In general, this whole inyan, the battle that we have with our animal, the battle that we have with our Yetzer Hara. You may ask, and everybody asks, why did Hashem make it Yetzer Hara? Hashem wants us to do Torah mitzvahs, so why create an obstacle to it? Remove all obstacles, and we'll do Torah mitzvahs. And the answer, of course, is that it's not just merely doing Torah mitzvahs. The meaning from Torah mitzvahs is to reveal Hashem's presence in the world. And the revealing of Hashem's presence in the world, particularly when it comes with difficulty, with the battle that we have to fight with our Yetzer Hara, just like in the case of the behemoth that we bring on the Mizbeach, we have to fight with our Yetzer Hara. Now let's understand how this battle with the Yetzer Hara takes place. You fall asleep.
I'm just like right here.
How does the Yetzer Hara, is the battle with the Yetzer Hara? You should listen to this one. How does the battle with the Yetzer Hara take place? You know,
Oh, sorry.
we have a tendency. Tendency means we have an inclination, we prefer to explain things to ourselves, to make it easier, to make it more pleasant. Like I mentioned before, you have to get up in the morning. If you put up a coffee and I smell the smell of coffee, that will help me to get up. Okay?
Yeah.
give you a silly example. The point is that we should make things that we should be encouraged and enticed to do it. This is where we are avoiding our battle with the Yetzer Hara. Avoiding. We are bypassing. We are. Understand? Huh? Jump across. We don't want a big battle, so we want to look for ways to bypass and make it pleasant. So sometimes we have to do that. But we have to understand that the real victory, the real accomplishment, is when we have a battle. Just like in the Korban.
When we have
a battle. When, just like a Korban, right? We can take the behemoth, shecht it, and make a big feast, and make a bracha, shehakol ni b'dvorei, and enjoy it, and say, Rebbeinu Shalom, thank you for giving me this meat. So I'm doing Avodas Hashem. And then there's another type of Avodas Hashem. We take this behemoth, and we burn it. That takes a battle. That takes a struggle. And we actually take the behemoth and completely destroy it.
If you're exotic.
This struggle expresses and represents much more vividly, much more openly our relationship with Hashem. That's what I explained before. This battle says one thing, that this behemoth belongs to Hashem completely. And the same thing, when we wage war with our own Yetzer Hara, we don't pat him in the back. We don't bribe him. We say to him, no, I'm not going to do this. Because Hashem said no. Not because, I'm going to give it any kind of bribe, any kind of pleasantness. I'm simply going to say no. So on the one hand, it seems such a difficult thing. But this is where the real victory takes place. This is where the real recognition of Hashem's presence in our lives is revealed. And this is what the Alter Rebbe calls Avodas Hashem. Avodah. You learned, the Alter Rebbe says, that there is a Beinani who is Oved Hashem, and a Beinani who is not an Oved Hashem. Do you remember that, Tanya? Asher lo yavod. A Beinani who is Oved Hashem, a Beinani who is not Oved Hashem. What's the difference? The one who is not Oved Hashem also does everything right. But he doesn't have this battle. He doesn't have this struggle. This struggle is an important part of a person's accomplishment, a person's breakthrough, and a person's showing and bringing down Hashem into his life, into himself. Recognition that, yes, Hashem is the only truth. And in the end result of that is enormous. Just want to kind of bribe you for it. You should understand that there is tremendous rewards for it. Just like in the Korban. By a Korban we establish our union with Hashem perfectly. And becomes completely one, and Hashem comes down and He dwells on the Mishkan and the Beis Hamikdash. Every Yid in his avodah and in his battle with the Yetzer Hara becomes a Mikdash, becomes a Beis Hamikdash, becomes a Mizbeach. And his own spiritual status, his own soul, his own life becomes so brighter and so much enhanced and so clear, that happens only through battle. Because that's when you remove the obstacle. You don't bypass it, you remove it. And furthermore, just want you to understand that the battle is a battle. Every time you wage this battle, the Yetzer Hara becomes weaker. It's not that you have to always repeat the same. It becomes weaker. And then the second time it becomes even weaker. And the obstacle becomes removed. And when you have the obstacle removed, the mind of the person and the heart of the person becomes so much more sensitive to Torah, so much more sensitive to godliness, is able to understand and to feel and to appreciate the finer things in Jewish life. He becomes simply much more intelligent, much more of a human being. But we have to understand that we have to bring a korban. And this korban is important, no matter how well you intentioned and how much you, and like I said, I know, I want, there has to be this last step. It said in Shulchan Aruch that I should not do it, and I'm not going to do it because it says so. No, Marti v'naseh v'tzayni. This connects the Yid to Hashem like no other thing will do. He has to, of course, learn and understand. But this is where the breakthrough is. This is when Hashem becomes real in our lives. Up until then, we're not ready, we're not waging any battle. We are gaining. Oh, I'm becoming a scholar, I'm becoming a good person. We're gaining something. It's all reflected on who I am and how well I'm doing. When does it become, when we actually become Hashem's servant, we have Hashem in our lives? This happens in this battle, in the Korban, where there's nothing there, no benefit, only one thing: Omarti v'naseh v'tzayni. And that establishes Hashem's presence in our lives and in the world, and this brings Mashiach.
Amen.
Yes.
The person has a big problem, which is dealing with the Yetzer Hara, and to this the person doesn't want maybe his task. But I think that the person has a problem bigger, which is the doubt.
I missed the person.
Which is the doubt. Dula?
Doubt. Suffix.
I always think that why Hashem didn't make the things in such a way that the person has clear which he has to do, even with Yetzer Hara, even with the hard work and thinking, man, I don't want to do this, but at least clear which he has to do, like a soldier. A soldier never thinks, this thing that the sergeant said, no way. No,
Yes,
the soldier doesn't want to do this, but he knows that he has to do and just do it. But Hashem put doubts in our mind.
I'll explain to you very briefly. Just like I mentioned to you before, right in the beginning, that this whole thing which I'm going to present to you is based on a deeper insight, on the fact that we have a neshama. It's not an external thing. You know, my sergeant said and I have to listen. It's something deeper. It's something that we become sensitive to our neshama. And this is where the battle is, and this is where the suffix is. It's doubt. The doubt is on a superficial level. Deep down, there is no doubt. And Hashem wants that we should be in contact with our neshama, to sense what is the real truth and where we're fooling ourselves. There was a story where a person came to see the Rebbe. And this person was a wealthy person. And he had the Yichidus interview with the Rebbe. And he was very, very impressed. He was very impressed by the Rebbe. And as he's sitting by the Rebbe, he thinks to himself that I'm going to give the Rebbe, he had thought of a big sum of money that he wants to give the Rebbe. And as they're still talking, so he thinks this thing, I'm going to give the Rebbe a big sum of money. And then a second thought comes to him. Such a big sum. I can divide it into 10 sections and also be a good gift. Right? I don't have to give all in one place. Like a person thinks of giving $1 million. If you give $100,000 here, $100,000, he can spread his wealth and do a lot of good things. I should put everything in one place. So he thought, that seems to be the better idea. Instead of putting it in one place. This whole debate that took place in his mind took a split second. You understand how it works? Split second. I think that's how the inner thoughts take place. So as this was going on, the Rebbe stopped in the middle of the conversation. And the Rebbe says to him, the first thought was from the right side. The second thought was from the left side. You understand? The right side and the left side? The right side is the Yetzer Tov, and the left side is the Yetzer Hara. Why is it Yetzer Hara? If you're sensitive to it, you realize that this is from Yetzer Hara. Because the first thought was, I want to give a big sum of money for a good cause. I want to really give myself out. Second thought was, there's nothing in it for me. If I give it in 10 places, I feel good. I accomplished something. I'm recognized here. I feel I'm really building something. This is only one place. So the Yetzer Hara wasn't very satisfied. He's not telling you don't give. And he comes, in this camouflage, in this hiding way. Oh, if I care, you shall accomplish more. But when he's got in mind, it's not a bigger accomplishment. When he's got in mind, it's more recognition. Whether it's recognition from others or self-satisfaction. But he is trying to interfere with the pure giving. You understand? This is what the Suffolk is about. And when a person examines his mind from a pure perspective, from the neshama, then he knows he doesn't have svekis. And that exactly is the reason Hashem allowed us. And this is why we have all the nisyenis, because Hashem wants that we should be in touch with our neshama, not just be robots, do what we are told to do. I explained to you before, the Torah says, that Eden said, Nasa v'nishma, and because Eden said, Nasa v'nishma, Hashem gave us the Torah. Everybody knows what it is, right? Nasa v'nishma. So everybody normally thinks the reason Nasa v'nishma is because Eden have accepted Nasa, they said, we'll do what you tell us. That's the main thing. And that's the beetle that they had. Nasa, we'll do what you tell us. But then, the question is, if that's all it is, so why do you have to wait till Nasa v'nishma? Because before Nasa v'nishma, the Eden said 2 times Nasa, without Nishma. 2 times they said Nasa. So you would think Nasa by itself, without Nishma, is better than Nasa v'nishma. If it's a question of a sergeant giving command to his soldier, right? Nasa is better than Nasa v'nishma. Just do what you're told. And that was not good enough. That was not acceptable. Hashem didn't give us the Torah when we said Nasa once. He didn't give us the Torah when we said Nasa a second time. But we finally realized what we need to do in Nasa v'nishma, that's when we got the Torah. Why? Because yes, indeed, Hashem wants us to do and follow and obey, but He wants us to bring our neshamas also in. This is nishma. Comprendre?
Neshama is what? You said inside. Neshama is what?
Neshama. This is the nishma. We want to be alive with it and recognize what it is that we do.
Two questions. This that you said that the korban is what is not is the best is the greatest hook and everything, not understood. Is this like the idea that why it has to be, why God wants that through the fight it should be that we should be? Like apparently the whole idea that it should be through a fight, and even if that it should be a fight after, that's where the choice is, that God wants that it should be through a fight. Why? Because God wants we could achieve this without the fight.
That's right.
The whole fight is there. Yeah?
Because this is the oir that comes min ha-choshech. Oir that comes from ha-choshech, that's the real life.
And the other question I have, you say that the korban is not really the tshuva, because the tshuva is done by the Asbada,
Vidui.
vidui, and the korban is to clean the scar.
Scar.
So, but my question is, when you do the tshuva, already God forgive you. He doesn't have hard feelings. He doesn't have a grudge. Because
He forgives you. You're not going to be punished for your.
But He's in pain that you did something wrong. Like
He's not in pain, but there is a scar. There is a break for you. The klal is that when a person does an avera, that opens him up to be able to do an avera again. Avera gereves avera. It makes him vulnerable. Makes it possible for him to not do an avera. Even if he does tshuva and he is really regretting and assuring, but there's still a scar. There's still a memory of that. To wipe all it away completely, that it doesn't even leave you vulnerable and open to that possibility, this is what the korban comes in. Let me give you an example. Time is running away. I don't know what. There's a halacha. A person is a butcher. A butcher or a shoichet, needs to be a shoichet and butcher together. A butcher who sold non-kosher meat, and he was caught selling non-kosher meat. So then, of course, you remove him from his job, and you don't allow him back into his job. And he does tshuva. He sets up his life in a kosher way. He's very careful with kashrus, very careful with everything. Still, you won't trust him to go back into the business of butcher. When would he be allowed to come back? He'd be allowed to come back if he happens to be in a completely different environment and in a far place, and he has an nisayon of money and a real money, and he stands up to the nisayon. He loses money not to transgress, then you can trust him to go back. Even though he already did tshuva. But when does he break away from that possibility? When he actually went through the whole thing over again. You understand? That's what the korban is. That's what the battle is about. And I'll tell you, some of you are a little bit older, some younger, this battle makes a human being. As long as a person tells himself, I'll be a nice person, I'll justify this, it's nothing. When he's able to stand up to himself and say, this no and this yes, because that's the way it is and that's the way it has to be, and there is no compromising, that's when he becomes a mensch. You know what the word mensch means? A mensch. A mensch is now, I think, in Oxford an official word.
Official word in Oxford.
I know, it's used universally. You have to be a mensch. This is what makes him into a mensch. You can talk and be and fool yourself and fool others, but the real thing happens when you go through the battle. Baruch Hashem, we're all here in battle. Everybody's successful. You should have a successful battle, a successful victory, and we should all go victoriously to Yerushalayim.
Amen.
Not in other karbanos where there is a, the Kohanim is part of it, or the Baal is part of it. So do we not see that there's no side benefit in those karbanos? Not the same union. It's not expressed directly.
Every unit of korban has to do with that, because the blood you go and you bring them, you burn on the mizbeach, which shows that it really belongs to Hashem, and you're taking it from Hashem's table. Hashem is giving it out to you.
How does a peace offering? how does killing a bull or whatever, like a peace offering, produce peace? How does killing an animal actually symbolize peace or whatever?
I see that you promised that you're not going to fall asleep, but you slept through the whole talk.
I was awake, just mentally dead. It wasn't a joke. I was asking seriously.
We're talking about different stuff. We're talking about the sin on fire. I don't think you mentioned that.
Okay. Is this Lana? Lana? Hi.
And you know we told me, you don't want to be heard about it.